Welcome to another edition of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. We are two retired New York City police detectives with 20 plus years of law enforcement. If you like all things true crime related from that police perspective, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you'll get all things DutyRon and this guy over here, Ed Wallace, when we go live or upload another video. Ed, how you doing tonight?
Doing great, Ron. Doing great.
It's always great to see you, and I know we have a great learning show tonight with Barbara Butcher from the New York City Medical Examiner's Office. She's a retired chief of staff, and Ed, she was your boss at one time, so there's a lot to talk about when we're talking autopsy results and findings for Vicky White. A lot of the folks are, all of the people who follow us and subscribe and who are true crime enthusiasts, they want to know, did Casey White kill her, or in fact was she shot by herself, as we know now? Before we get into it, I want to say a special thank you to the Patreon supporters, the channel members, and all the folks who positively engage. You guys are what makes this a great community, and I tip my cap to you, men and women, because you're what makes this community great. Your engagement, your interaction, your smart questions that you ask us. Ed and I love it. Don't we, Ed?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love this family.
If you can, just give them a little bit of a preview of what we're going to be talking about with the autopsy out yesterday. Not the full report, but the cause and manner.
Okay, so the cause and manner came out yesterday, and the cause was suicide, and the manner was self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. And so we're going to go over all the details associated with that and how the pathologists typically make these kinds of calls.
Absolutely. And we have one of the best. So I don't want to waste time because the clock is running. We got 30 minutes with her. So I'm going to play a quick piece of media, and this will just get all of our folks outside of the country, give them a little bit of taste of what we're going to be talking about.
Thank you, Valerie. Also breaking at this hour, we have just learned within the last 90 minutes, 2 new developments regarding those Alabama fugitives, Casey and Vicky White. Vanderbilt County Coroner releasing the autopsy report of Vicky White. It was determined that she did die from that single gunshot, self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. Coroner ruling that death a suicide. Plus, according to online records, Casey White no longer listed as an inmate in the Vanderbilt County Jail. He is en route to Lauderdale County, Alabama, where he now awaits those new charges.
So that was that. That's a quick little piece because time is valuable, and we have Barbara Butcher, my next guest here, coming on with me and Ed. She is a wonderful, wonderful friend of Crime Time with DutyRon. Barbara, thank you so much for taking out your hump day, Wednesday, to come out and say hello to everybody. Barbara, how you doing?
Just terrific. It's great to see you guys.
You as well.
Thank you. And, you know, Barbara, you are a fan favorite, the ladies and the gentlemen, but especially the ladies, because we're 90% women on this channel. The analytics show it. I'm not saying it. So girl power, but the women, the ladies love you, and they love the education that you give Crime Time with DutyRon's audience. So I can't thank you enough for taking out your time, Barbara.
Oh, I'm always thrilled to be here. I love working with you folks, and the fans you have, Ron, are just terrific. They bring a lot of insight to these cases.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And you could see also, Barbara, from the comments and some of the messages that came in, I literally received, literally received 100 more suggestions for your book, and I didn't even forward them to you yet, but I'm putting them in an Excel spreadsheet, and I'm going to send them out to you.
There were some really good titles that I think you should take seriously.
Oh, that's terrific. I thought nobody answered. That's terrific,
Oh,
Ron.
no.
You
Oh,
better
I
get them over to me.
Over 100, and it tongue twisted me because I was so embarrassed that I didn't put it together and send it out to you yet.
Just send me that list. That's terrific.
So, Barbara, we have Casey White, Vicky White on the run, 11 days. We all know that earlier this week they were apprehended. A short chase ensued, high speed. The vehicle crashes, and we have the perpetrator who's broken out of jail. He is pretty much unharmed, and we have Vicky White with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. DOA unresponsive at the scene, but brought to a medical location. Can you just talk a little bit about, when we have situations like this? I know Ed is going to walk you through some questions, but on a, not talking about Vicky White here, but on a standard case where you have a victim, person who has taken their own life by gunfire, what is the medical examiner's office role in this?
Autopsy, of course, and scene investigation. And, just to go back to basics for a minute, an autopsy tells us the cause of death. In this case, gunshot wound. But what it doesn't tell us is the manner of death. And that is this a homicide, a suicide, or an accident? And that we determine by a scene investigation, by having the body in the scene with all the evidence, the ballistics, the witness statements. That's where we determine manner. So in this case, of course, the cause was gunshot wound to the head. And the coroner, that was, his name's Steve Lockyer. He's he's not a medical person. He's an elected coroner. Served, I think, 23 years in law enforcement with the sheriff's office,
right,
as an investigator, and then 7 years as a deputy coroner.
Barbara, can I ask you quickly, when you said he's not a medical person, you and I have had conversations with Ed live. We talked about coroners across the country, and some of them with minimal experience. Can you just explain to the folks that might not know this, how does a coroner get his position? Is this something that's appointed by the local authorities, or is it an election? How does this go, and what's the qualification standards?
This country is incredibly mixed up when it comes to the coroner and medical examiner system. Our entire death investigation system in this country is fractured. So in every state, each county will determine if they're going to have a medical examiner, that's a physician who's trained as a forensic pathologist, or a coroner, which could be an elected person with a high school diploma in some jurisdictions like upstate New York, or in Los Angeles, the coroner is actually a physician, a forensic pathologist. It's different everywhere. The standards don't exist. There are suggested standards, but are there protocols and standards that must be followed state to state? No. And that's why we have a very messed up system.
Yes, and in some cases, in some counties, the elected sheriff is the coroner as well.
That's right.
Yeah, so it's
how does that interfere with the job of a coroner? You have to kind of, with maybe sometimes help, as you said, Barbara, from forensic anthropologists to odontologists. But how does that hinder a proper job function if you do not have any medical background and you're conducting an autopsy to see what happened to potential victims? Barbara, I'm concerned with that.
Yeah, it is of concern. There's a case out of the Midwest where a woman had a small child who turned blue. And the local coroner said, well, she must have poisoned him. And she was convicted, and she got out of jail eventually, out of prison. And then she had another baby, and that baby turned blue. And once again, they went after that woman and said she must be poisoning her children. Well, it turned out they both had a rare genetic disorder, what is it called? Methemochromosoma, whatever. So it took a physician, a forensic pathologist, to figure that out. Many coroners come from law enforcement, which is good, but that's only half the investigation when it comes to death. It's really, I think, important to have at least some medical training, even if it's a coroner who comes from a law enforcement background as a detective and then takes courses, lots of courses. And there are many good ones across the country. Ed does a lot of teaching in these. And those courses can teach them the medical effects of disease, of wounds, and wound interpretation. That helps so much in determining cause and manner of death and gets justice done.
Wow. Hey, Barbara, would you say that this, and I'm going to let you go, but I just have to get this thought out of my mind because I'm old and senile. If you had as a professional were looking at this case here with Vicky White, Casey White, in the car, self-inflicted gunshot wound, is this going to get in the way of this investigation with Steve Lockyer, the coroner there? Would this be a concern or would this not be a concern? Because I want to get that out of the way.
Not in this particular case. Sometimes you will hear me bitch about that the investigating coroner has absolutely no medical experience. But in this case, it doesn't hurt because it's all about the ballistics. We know she died of a gunshot wound. How did that wound occur? And we can talk about that. Ed and I can go into that. But it's all about the ballistics. The entry wound, her position in the car, the bullet impact mark on exit, any blood splash, blowback, etc. That's what's going to determine it. So it's just fine that this guy is law enforcement.
Yes, well, Barbara, let's talk about the fact that it's not a medical professional means that he cannot perform the pathology. He cannot do an autopsy. He has to go out and get a forensic pathologist to perform that autopsy. So he has to contract out.
Yeah. And sometimes these smaller jurisdictions, they have like an annual budget of, let's say, $15,000 for autopsies. So an autopsy costs somewhere around $4,000 in these jurisdictions. That means he's got to go out and hire a forensic pathologist. So what if he gets 4 homicides that year? Does that mean he only does 3 autopsies?
Right.
This is a concern. It really is. And it needs more attention.
Okay. So let's get into the scene. Now, we talk about the death scene investigation. Now, as you, by doing your research, and know that this scene was altered, and there's only 2 legitimate reasons to alter this kind of a scene. One is life safety, and the other is evidence preservation. So they said at the time the responding officers were at the vehicle that she seemed to be still alive, and she was also still in possession of the firearm. It was recorded on the 9/11 calls that the officers saying that she's got the gun. It's in her hand. It's in her right hand, and her fingers on the trigger. Eventually, an officer goes in there and removes the gun, and then they're seen pulling her out of the moonroof of the vehicle and bringing her out, and then having EMS come up and start to work on her. So the scene is altered. And obviously nobody took any pictures and nobody did anything because our life safety comes first. The scene comes second, right? We all agree to that.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. So that, so now we have to rely on the work of the pathologist in terms of trajectory through that head. We have to identify the correct entrance wound and the exit, if there is an exit, right? We have penetrating and perforating. We have to understand that. We have to look for gunshot residue, right? Also, we talked about bloodstain pattern analysis, right? So with an entrance wound, you're going to get what we call blowback or backspatter. And we would look for that on telltale signs, right? Where would you look for? Remember when we were doing our scenes, where would you look for that if you suspected suicide?
If I suspected suicide, I'm first, we're going to look for gunshot residue on that person's dominant hand. In this case, I believe it's the right hand.
Correct.
And then when it comes to the blowback, when the gun is held close to or near the head, the initial entry, there is some blowback of gunshot residue, blood, and sometimes even little fragments of skull or brain matter. So you're going to see those on the hand, and if she's in the passenger window, if she's in the passenger seat, which we believe at this time is the case, then on that passenger side window, you're going to see an explosive pattern of blowback, blood, brain matter, what have you.
Yes, and having conducted a lot of shooting reconstructions and bloodstain pattern analysis, those are the areas that we would look for the presence of this. And if we find it, we document it. And then we work together with the pathologist and try to position that head in 3 dimensions in that space to see how it correlates with the blowback. And then we have the forward spatter. So if we have an exit, we'd be looking somewhere in there as well, maybe the headliner of the vehicle, okay, or the windshield. And we search those areas. And then using the trajectory that obviously the pathologist, tell people how pathologists determine trajectories when they have an entrance and an exit.
Well, first of all, we look at the external wound. An entrance wound will have interior beveling. And if it's a close contact wound, we'll see a burn ring from the hot gun barrel. Sometimes, a sight notch mark, like a muzzle stick, right against the brain, the head, and that'll be imprinted hard onto the skin. Now, an exit wound is commonly more outward beveling, with some fracturing, and then in the hair or in the immediate area, you'd see little fragments, blood, brain matter, etc. So we determine first which is the entrance, which is the exit. When we work on trajectories of gunshots, they commonly use a long, thin metal rod. And it wouldn't be so much used in a case where there's a shot to the head, but if there are multiple gunshots, wounds of a body, they're going to try and insert rods into each entrance and exits to determine the trajectories. Why do we do that? Because in some cases there are multiple shooters, or there's some discussion, some argument about the position of the victim, position of the shooter. I mean, I've had one where the guy, the perpetrator said, well, he came at me with a gun and I just shot him straight on before he could shoot me. Well, you dummy, the guy was laying on the ground. The entrance wound was to the back of his head and the exit was in the carpeting. So that story doesn't make sense.
Right.
So that's why we follow trajectories and why ballistics is so important.
Right. And
I'm back. I have a question. Am I allowed to ask one?
Yes, go ahead.
Wait, we're having a good discussion here, Ed.
I know. Just 2 seconds because I'm old and senile. I forget things. How would we determine that the perpetrator 2 didn't commit this shooting? How would they rule out Casey White in a autopsy? That's what I would want to know, and I think a lot of people in the audience want to know. And I'm sorry if I broke up the continuity of this, but I needed to ask that.
Okay, well, if Vicky was sitting in the passenger seat and Casey was in the driver's seat, if he reached over and shot her, the entrance wound would be in the left side of her head. The exit would be somewhere on the right. Now that blood splash on the windshield, on the passenger window that I saw, that could be exit splash. But again, that's where the pathology is so important. That's why an autopsy is necessary. Is this the entrance or is this the entrance?
And is that definitive? They would know that from the exam?
Yep.
Yeah. And they follow the bullet through the brain, and they'll look the direction of, again, if this is contact to the head, the soot and the gunshot residue are going to go into the brain, and so you'll see it follow the path up from the entrance, and it dissipates over distance. And and Barbara knows all about that. Barbara, let's talk about this one thing. Occasionally, we'll see a very star-like entrance wound when the gun is in contact with the skin. Tell the people how that occurs.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. When you have a tight contact wound to the head, the bullet enters, and then with it are gases, like all the gases that drive it through the muzzle and project it for, half a mile or a mile. Those are powerful. They blow into the wound and then explode out again, leaving a star pattern as it splits the flesh around the bone. That happens with tight contact wounds to the head. Now, if it's done on the body against a hollow surface like the stomach, you'll get a cavity just inside the abdomen. You get like a blowout cavity from those hot gases.
Mm-hmm. So the gases get trapped between the skull and the skin and blow backwards towards the direction the projectile came, and creates the star-like entrance, which sometimes people, not knowing or having any training, confuse with an exit.
Absolutely. And I, in my very early months on the job, I was confused by that too. And I had an entrance wound that was so blasted outwards, but then, the pathologist demonstrated to me the effects of those gases blowing out the skin.
And is caliber noted in a autopsy, or is that basically for crime scene?
No. The pathologist will make some determination of the size of the caliber of the weapon based upon the ballistic damage that they're seeing. They may say small caliber, medium caliber, large caliber, but they won't say 9mm, 38, unless that projectile is present in the body.
Yeah. Yep. If they can recover a bullet in the head or in the body, that's good evidence. Important evidence.
So as Barbara was saying, if she's seated in the passenger side, so she's on the right side, she's right-handed, the gun was recovered from the right hand. Okay. So if she shot herself in the right side of the head, okay, and he's the driver, well, that would preclude him from firing that shot.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's why, that's why I say that the fact that Steve Lockyer is not a medical person doesn't matter in this case. He's a detective, an investigator, law enforcement, presumably with good experience in ballistics and gunshots. So if he looked at, if the pathologist told him entrance wound on the right, he saw the blowback, he saw an exit wound, the exit wound to the top of the head or the left side of the head, and a bullet impact mark that fit with that, there you go, case closed.
Absolutely. So good. So what happens now is we take that vehicle, it gets impounded, and then we go over it and give it a thorough forensic investigation inside the vehicle, and we'll document all the bloodstain pattern analysis work will be done. Ballistic damage will be located and documented. Measurements will be taken. In fact, we do 3D laser scanning of the interior of the car and get all that data. So that we can do that. Then we work with the pathologist, at least I do when I do my shooting reconstruction and bloodstain pattern analysis. I don't work in a vacuum. I have to work with the pathologist. I have to get information from them that tell me what they're seeing in terms of trajectory of a ballistic damage to the body and so forth, and the number of wounds, what type of wounds, all of these things play into what I do afterwards.
Yeah. Another thing I noticed, I listened to the 911 tape a couple of times, and I'm sure they'll slow that down and get even a better picture of what she was saying. But there was some controversy about her saying, the airbags will kill us, slow down. Yeah. And then, there was a loud noise. I don't know if that was the gunshot or the car being hit or turning over. And then there was, this little scream from her, and then silence. And so the questions arise. Well, why, if she was going to shoot herself, why did she care that the airbags were going to kill them? Why did she say slow down?
I'm going to play a little bit of that real quick so you guys can hear, because it's only seconds. So I'll play the audio.
Average 911. 911. Hello?
John. Airbags are going on. Let's get out. Run. It's like a hotel.
Hello?
The rest of this is silent. And, I'm trying to determine when that gunshot went off, Ed and Barbara. And I'm really baffled because I've listened to headphones with, really professional studio quality headphones. And I even had Josh enhance this audio. And I couldn't, for the life of me, narrow down to when, a gunshot inside a vehicle with speakers playing. This is speakerphone. Whether it was the OnStar from the Cadillac or it was Bluetooth, usually, it's going to be clear and pretty distinct, right?
You would think.
Yeah.
In fact, you don't really hear the dynamics of the crash that well either. And what people need to know too about the airbags, there's an electronic detonator that sets those airbags off. Yeah. Okay, it's called an electric squib. Okay, and in the past, they've actually killed people. And maybe that's what she was thinking of. But they rectified that situation, all right, because those squibs had an aluminum covering over them, and shrapnel from the aluminum, when they detonated, came out through the airbag and entered people and killed them. But that was a recall done on all of those airbags, and that system was replaced. But it still makes a pop like it's an explosion. It is an explosion.
Right. Yeah. No doubt.
But again, it's very difficult to discern car accident, airbags, or gunshot. You can't. I at least I listened to it several times, and I have Bose high quality headsets, and I can't figure it out.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say thank you to everyone for bringing in super chats and becoming channel members. You guys are great. Thank you, Darlene Dunlap, and all of the other super chatters who came in while we were. Listen, when we're in the middle of this conversation, it's hard to answer the super chats. So please understand that, but we do appreciate them. Subscribing and all of that stuff is great. Barbara, it's a 5-minute dash cam / body cam footage. Would you have time to watch that? Because we're getting close to the 30-minute mark.
Sure, go ahead.
Are you going to bill me on your overtime rate?
Nah, not anything for you guys.
You're a sweetheart.
All right, thank you.
Mama. Thank you. All right, here we go. We're going to play this. This is only 5 minutes, but we're going to play it because I think it's important for all of us to take a peek at this and then have Barbara and Ed talk about this. So I'm going to let it play without any interruptions.
Oh, he's right here. Right here. Hey, we need to clear some of this shit out of the way so we can get out of here. Okay. He is. Oh, he shot himself. Davis, you good? You need anything? You need anything?
No, she's good.
Okay.
She's still got it in her hand.
I don't know. Got the gun in her hand?
Yeah, she's got a gun.
All right, watch it. Hey, let's go ahead and pop. Let's go ahead and pop this front windshield. She's got the gun in her hand.
She's still breathing. I see chest right.
Okay.
She's back.
Yeah.
Yes, still breathing.
Would it be better if we try to pull the vehicle back? Would it be safer? Let the fire guy stay back.
Need any life, bud?
Yeah. Fingers on the trigger.
Where's he at? Anybody got a hooligan?
Maybe.
Cover. Still no movement.
Waiting too far on scene. I'm with you. What's your unit call?
You're good. They were trying to for back in.
Okay.
Hey, Kurt, you got a Halligan? Yeah. Bring that Halligan. We're going to start working on
Is it a wagon?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. I got glasses. What do you expect?
Okay.
Nobody.
Yeah. Okay. So listen. Break that front. Break that front. I want
That's got limited in it.
He
So
does?
it's not going to break.
okay.
Yeah.
We need to cut that front windshield.
Or if we can break this sunroof here, probably get in there. Yeah. Hey, here, let me see. We've got that housing right here. You want to try to break this sunroof here too?
Can you pull her out through there?
Well, I think we're gonna get the gun.
That'd probably be easier in the windshield.
Oh, see if it'll open.
Good idea. We got cover?
Yeah.
It's opening. It's opening.
Sometimes it's simpler.
Just be careful, dude.
Yeah. You got me? Yep. I'm gonna go for the gun first. Okay, I'm gonna go for the gun.
All right. Grab her hand.
I'm gonna grab it. Let me a little bit. All right, pull me out. All right, I got it. All right. Seems safe. Hear me pull it out?
Yeah.
Somebody pull me. Thanks, man.
Hey, go get cleaned up. Go. Here, hold on.
Okay, so that was it. You heard them say she was still breathing, and you also she was still clutching the firearm. So that's a lot of sticking points. A lot of people are concerned about that. And is that commonplace, Barbara, to see a decedent that had just taken their own life with the gun to still be clenching onto the gun? Could there be a reason for that?
Yeah, there's a couple of different theories on that. One person in the chat mentioned cadaveric spasm, which is, supposedly like a tension of the muscles that causes the gun to be clenched in the hand. I don't know if that's it or if it's rigor mortis can come on very quickly when a person is tense and going and running. And in a case like this, that's entirely possible. Or it's just, whatever. The gun's just there in her hand. Someone, I think Kayla mentioned something about the, that sudden moment of panic. Like she's got this gun in her hand. Maybe she thinks she's going to get involved in a shootout. And then she sees them closing in. She knows what prison is like. She knows her life is over. And in a moment of panic, boom, possible.
Yeah, and also, though if she was still breathing as they are saying, then cadaveric spasm typically wouldn't have been associated with that.
Right.
You know, I've only had like 2 cases of it in my entire career, and I had to pry the fingers open to get that gun out of there. And it's like instant rigor mortis. But again, prior to the gunshot to the head, there was a lot of adrenaline. There was a lot of movement. The blood pressure was up. All these things were occurring because of the, you know, the fight or flight that was going on prior to the gunshot wound. And so all of those things can occur. But if she was breathing, it's not likely to be cadaveric spasm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And what folks aren't understanding is that those officers on the scene are treating this like someone who wants to shoot them and hurt them. So when she had the gun and they saw her in that vehicle, the reason you saw that deputy on his knees with his gun pointed in the car and the other deputy saying, "You got me covered," is because they have to treat, even though she's mortally wounded, they have to treat her as a dangerous, a danger. She's got a firearm on her. They were fleeing from justice, and it's about safety. So, Mountain Girl, that's the answer to that. You cannot rush in to administer life-saving, you know, measures on a armed perpetrator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as Ed mentioned before, you know, the reasons for this scene is altered. Why is it altered? Life safety, you know, life-saving measures, preservation of evidence, and in this case, safety of the officers and the first responders, the ambulance personnel. She had a gun in her hand. She's still breathing. Who the hell knows what could happen?
Yeah, and once EMS starts working on a person, they're obligated now to take that person to the hospital, and you know, so that body gets removed from the scene, and it's got to go to the hospital, and then at the hospital they'll declare the death.
Yeah, yeah. The whole thing is just.
Yeah. So as far as it goes with the cause and manner of death, Barbara, you're confident that 100% that Casey White went, you know, I'm not saying you, but I'm saying with them putting that out there as an official, they dot their I's, they cross their T's. And like you said, this is not a profession where we just, you know, throw out things that are just in the best interest of the public to please people. It's a matter of science and a matter of what the evidence is presented in front of them on the deceit, correct?
Mm-hmm. Well, you know me, Ron. I don't say 100% or for certain on anything that I haven't seen with my own eyes. And that means it's not my case.
Of course.
And I have not read the full autopsy report because that hasn't been released. And I haven't seen the scene photos or the ballistics diagrams and the reconstruction. But having said all that, it is likely, it is very likely that yes, they are correct, because I'm going to base that on the fact that these are experienced folks who understand ballistics, gunshot wound angles, and you know, look, is it possible that it was an accident, that as the airbags went off, the gun she's holding, you know, went toward her head? You know, it's possible. But I'm going to bet on these folks that they're correct, that this is a suicide based on their investigation of the scene.
Yeah, and if he was driving and the way the vehicle is overturned and they weren't wearing seatbelts, then he would have fell on top of her at some point. And how did he get out of the car? I would like to have seen how he was taken out of the car, because she was lying face up on the passenger side from the roof, from the hood liner, I mean the roof liner, down the side of the door, the passenger front door, into the that area. And a gun was allegedly in her right hand, and it was then knocked out of her right hand and then picked up by the officer before they dragged her out of the moonroof. And you could, so it's very interesting. Again, like they said, the car is going to get a workup, but it's obvious though, from the sheriff in Indiana, he's not charging them with any crimes. He's not charging Casey with any crimes. He wanted Casey out of his jurisdiction, and he waived his extradition, and he's back in Alabama.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no charges charged against him in the state of Indiana.
Yeah.
Wow.
Interesting. Barbara, even with all the education that you just bestowed onto us, Coco Cyber Lounge said, could Casey have shot her and then put the gun in her hands? I'm
Very
not,
unlikely.
I'm not laughing at that, Casey, Casey, but it's just, for me, it's comical that we just spoke for 40 minutes about this, and people are still feeling that this guy killed her. So what's your thoughts on that, Barbara?
Coco Cyber Lounge. No, I'm thinking that, you know, they went beyond that. It's not just that the gun was in her hand. It's entrance wound, it's exit wounds, it's ballistics angles, it's bullet impact marks, it's positional and reconstruction. I wouldn't base it just on the gun being in somebody's hand, because you're right, somebody could do that. In this case, I don't think that happened. I think it's a suicide.
And let me ask you, Ed, I know, Barbara, we're going to let you run in a minute, but Ed, you know, between you, myself, and Barbara, in an impact like that where you're rammed by, you know, 2 or 3 U.S. Marshals pickup trucks, you're in a 4-door sedan, you're in a ravine, and now you're sideways. Forward motion, law of physics and averages, is going to push all of the passengers, whether you're driving or the passenger, you're going to be sandwiched on top of each other in that ravine, the way that the car is positioned, you know, from the force and from, you know, getting hit. You know, people are saying, well, how come Casey was taken out first? Well, he wasn't shot.
Because he was probably lying on top of her.
Yeah.
Remember, if he was the driver, and the way they hit him on the driver's side, and they knocked that vehicle over, the driver's side was 90 degrees up.
Yeah.
And the passenger side is down. So he would be lying on top of her, and obviously he's not shot and he's not injured. He can climb right out.
Yeah.
Okay? She, on the other hand, shot herself, and she wasn't moving.
Yeah, and he was a clear and present danger. I think they wanted him out and locked and, you know, secured.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't see any blood on him when they were walking him out of there. I didn't see, and I looked for it. I played it back several times. I didn't see any blood on his neck. But again, most of the neck that I was looking at was the left side, which would be away from her if she's sitting in the passenger side.
Yeah,
I did see some blood on the back of lower part of his back of his neck, but it wasn't tremendous. And we're going to play it after Barbara leaves. But the sheriff, the sergeant, and the deputy, they were both alerted to it because they asked him, "Are you okay?" And then he said something about the back, and they both looked. And then the sergeant, you know, was calling for the medics to come over. It wasn't a tremendous amount of blood, and it could have been this. It could have been the splatter, or you know, who knows? You know, maybe coming out, he hit his head and cut his head in the back, coming out through the door, or
didn't crash. But you know, you got all that glass flying through there.
Correct. Right.
yeah.
I want to look at the chat quickly for any questions for Barbara. If you guys have any chats, any questions for her. I know here comes the book questions. When's the book coming out?
Yeah. Yes, the book will be out in a year, May of 2023. Apparently, there's a shortage of paper or some kind of supply chain issue. So I'm working on putting together a website now and things like that. And Ron, you better send me those suggestions for a title that the fans have sent in.
I tell you, Barbara, I saw some really good ones. I was really impressed by our audience and what they put together.
I'd love to see that list. Ron, I'm counting on you. I'm holding you to it.
I starred them and I saved them. So I just got to compile them and put them together.
Terrific.
I promise you I will bomb you with all of those suggestions. And if anybody has additional suggestions, please keep sending them in. Barbara, what's the tentative name of your book?
Right now it's called Only the Dead Know. But as my publisher pointed out, but Barbara, you know, so the title doesn't make sense. That's why I'm asking your fans to help me with a title. It's the stories of the cases I've worked on, what it's like to be a woman working in death, despair, and destruction in New York City. And I think it's going to be good.
I really do. I'm excited about it, and I know that I'll be able to get a couple of signed copies. And we will be doing giveaways here on Crime Time with DutyRon and promoting that book. So I want to try to keep this a family show, Barbara.
Okay.
Listen, 2,500 people in the chat, and not many questions about this. But if you do have continued questions in regards to Vicky White's autopsy results, the cause and manner. And when the full report comes out, of course, Barbara, if she doesn't block me after tonight, she's going to be getting another request from me to come on back onto the show. And Barbara is very good about it. I mean, I asked her today and she was like, sure, let's do it. So I appreciate that, Barbara. And I know that you always are willing to engage with our audience, because they are, you know, some of the best in the true crime community. So this
They
is
sure are, Ron. And I enjoy it. I enjoy talking to you. And, you know, I love you guys. Let me know when the autopsy report comes out and we'll talk.
Thank you,
All
Barbara.
right.
Thank you.
All right.
Good
Take
night,
care,
Barbara.
everybody.
Take
Stay
care, Barbara. Thank you.
All right.
There she goes, Barbara Butcher.
There she
Ed,
goes.
can we just, for the people who just stumbled across and be like, Barbara Butcher, give the audience a little bit of her background now that she's gone. We should have did that in the beginning.
Okay, well, Barbara is the daughter of a retired inspector from the New York City Police Department, who is a physician's assistant. And when the New York City Medical Examiner transitioned from contracted doctors to do death scene investigations, they started what's called a medical legal death investigator position at the Office of Chief Medical Examiner in New York City. And they hired all physician's assistants to come in and do all the death scene investigation for the pathologist. So they would go out, they would get the call from us in the crime scene unit. We would call the medical examiner's office and say, hey, we got this scene, and you know, we got a body on the scene, or whatever the case may be, and let's roll. And they would come out and they would be the eyes and ears and do the field investigation for the pathologist that would be performing the autopsy. And Barbara would take photographs, take measurements, do body core temperatures, document the various injuries and locations. They would also do some background investigations on the medical history of the patient and look at all prescription and illicit drugs that may be being used by the patient in their examinations and so forth. And they would lay all this information in a report to the pathologist, and the pathologist would review them before they conduct their autopsy.
Fascinating job and a fascinating career. She was also instrumental in identification through DNA the victims of the World Trade Center attack. Many victims, and you worked alongside of her in the chief medical examiner's office, the chief of staff. She was at the time, right? Or
Right.
shortly thereafter.
Right. She was the chief of staff, and I was the director of forensic training for the medical examiner's office, and she was my direct supervisor, my one and only supervisor.
And what a great boss that she must have been.
Oh man, we had such a history together. I mean, we worked all these crime scenes together. She for the ME's office, me for the NYPD, and then I tried to. I brought her on at LSU for a short period of time to do some training, because she's a great instructor. And then we got together on this project and developed a forensic science training program at the New York City Medical Examiner's Office that we won $1 million grants from the National Institute of Justice to train up the nation's death investigators. So like Barbara was saying, we would bring coroners and their death investigators to our courses to train them how to properly do a death investigation.
Wow. Unbelievable. Fascinating work, and, you know, bringing closure to families who lost loved ones that day. I lost my cousin. He was pulverized in the remains of the World Trade Center. That was just an important part. I remember bringing his toothbrush and his hairbrush to the down by the pier there, by you know, where the cruise ships are, and it was just terrible. Miguel and Kane, thank you for the $20 super sticker. And T-Boss sends in a $5 one and says, will they do tox on her? Ed?
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. I want to just show this. This is Casey White being brought out of the wreckage. This is the thing I was telling you about, Ed.
Yeah, can we back that up to the beginning, because this is a closer shot, but I remember seeing him farther away when they were first pulling him out.
Let me just see what I got here.
Okay.
Yeah, that
starts there. Okay.
I want to just show this part because here they start talking to him, and back here on the bottom of his head is where you'll see the blood. These guys ask him.
I really can't see it, you know.
You can't see it. Hold on. See, they're looking at it right now.
What are they looking at?
I'll show you. And he's calling for the medic. Are you okay? They're asking him, you all right? Look, see, he's looking. Now he's looking.
Yeah, this is the dash cam. You know where that footage was that I was talking about before? That was the body cam of the officer. Let's see if they turn him around and we get a better look.
I believe that they do. He's looking. That's the sergeant. And he's calling for that fire unit.
You see his shirt.
Right here is the blood.
Okay, yeah. You see his shirt pocket is all torn there. You see that?
But Ed,
yeah, I see it.
Putting it.
I see it. It looks reddish. Yeah.
Let me see if I can. I can't even make that big, but that's what they were looking at, both of them, and that was the reason why we might have gotten a report that he was hit by shrapnel or a ricochet.
You know, if he saw the cars coming at him and he turned his head, you know, away from the crash, right, and then you know the flying debris and so forth came in. I don't think it's ballistic in nature.
I mean, this is a good picture. And when you look at this on a big screen or later on when you watch the replay, just look at this part. You could see this guy is leaning over his back, this sergeant, and looking at it.
Yeah.
First, the deputy, the U.S. Marshal's looking at it, and then he looks at it. See, he's looking right there. He's looking at it. Now the sergeant comes over and looks at it. And that was the extent of his injuries. And he was complaining about it because after this, he falls down on the ground. But again, I had a partner who was 6'7", Jay Last.
Yeah, that's right there. You can see it even better.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah, right there.
So that's what I picked up on, and a lot of people didn't see that, but you know, you can see blood coming down on the left side right here. So he definitely had some injuries, and like you said, it could have been just from getting banged around in the cockpit of that car. You know, getting rammed by 3 pickup trucks. You see them here in the background. 1, 2, 3. One of them's actually in the ravine. So
yeah. Hey folks, the terminology is blood spatter, not splatter.
I started that.
Okay. Don't listen to Ron. Listen to me. It's spatter, not splatter.
Everyone wants to take me out to a dinner and teach me the proper terminology on all this stuff. I'm just a street cop, you know what I mean? I just show up, and you know, it is what it is. Anyways, Ed, let's see if I can. You want me to try to find the body cam footage full?
Yeah. You had it. You showed it before. Yeah, the body cam footage.
I'm gonna put you full screen, and you could talk to some of the folks and look at the chat, and then I'll find it. I'll be right back. Okay.
Yeah, so there's very interesting dynamics here, and I can't believe the amount of information out there that is misreported in the newspapers. Like, you know, I'm doing all this research, and I have one paper that says this, and then I have another paper that contradicts that paper. Then you have 2 press conferences going on, and one sheriff is contradicting the other sheriff. And it was just crazy, the amount of misinformation that was flying around. Now, I get it in the initial stages of things. There's a lot of chaos that occurs, and things aren't organized, and you know, it takes a while to get organized and get the good information out. But I mean, boy, we're talking sometimes several days after it, and the misinformation is still flying. So let's see. Anybody have any questions here? Oh yes, you like the back scene. That was made by our producer Josh, and he gave it to me. And I'm playing this now in the background, as opposed to the back of my dock in my house in New Jersey.
All right, I have a 1 minute and 51 second thing of the car rolling up to the front of the scene. Is that the one?
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one.
Okay, let's get this rocking. Hold on, I'll back it up.
Yeah, this is it.
And tell me if you want me to stop it. They're dragging him out.
They dragged him out. So they dragged him out first.
Yeah, I'll go back to a little bit before that. You'll see it right on the back end of this white vehicle here. They're dragging him right now, and it looks like probably they came out. It didn't come out he didn't come out that sunroof because they popped that out while we were watching it. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think they dragged him out of? The window?
He's probably laying on top of her.
Right, and they just
dragged him off of her.
I'd like to see some of the other body cam footage from the different angles there in the beginning. If anybody can find early body cam footage from actually some of these officers that are here while he's being dragged out.
Back that up again. Yeah, running from here. Okay, they're dragging him out, and he looks to be face down. He's face down. Okay.
Yeah, he's definitely face down.
Yeah, you can see his feet are dragging. Yeah. Uh-huh.
So he's face down. That means you're right. He was on top of her.
Yeah. So he probably got tossed across. When they hit him, he was the driver and wasn't wearing any seatbelt. He probably got tossed across the front of that car right into her.
Yeah, one of the deputies falls.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And they're just securing him now, checking him for weapons.
And you see you can go back. You see how some officers were in the front of the car and then immediately backed up because it looked like they saw the gun.
Right.
Watch right here. Right. Watch.
This guy right here.
You see the guy. Yep. And they're backing up, and they saw,
At one point, yeah. 1, 2. Boom. Yeah, they back up.
Yeah, one guy ran out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, again, to all my true crime enthusiasts, if you can find any body cam footage from any, these are U.S. Marshals, I believe, or the SWAT team members of the local police department. I don't think that they have body cam footage, but there were, I think, 2 uniformed officers there. There's actually 3 there. 1, 2, 3. There's 3 out at the car right now. 1, 2, 3. So, like this guy that's leaning over right down here, I'd like to see his body cam footage, unless that's the stuff that we've seen from before. And you see this guy still tactically with his gun. They're treating her as armed and ready to shoot. So,
you see, Janice wrote this, and I don't know what it means, Janice. What are you asking? Is this what you did, Ed?
She's meaning, is this what you did for a living while you were on the police department? Like, was this your job? Crime scene comes afterwards and collects all the evidence. If that's what you're asking, Janice, no.
I'm not a first responder. I'm a secondary responder. I'm an investigative support in forensics. That's what I did for 15 years. And then the rest of my stuff was counterterrorism.
All right, here's the audio again.
Amazon Island. 911.
You hear the car? Ed, you hear the car accelerating, right?
Right, you hear it accelerating, yeah.
And it does sound like she's talking to him driving, like, hey, let's listen again. I got both headphones in now.
911. Hello?
John. Airbags are going off. Let's get out.
Airbags are going off.
Hotel. Let's get out and run. Airbags are going off. Let's get out and run. Hotel.
Hello?
That's it after that. You don't hear anything from her now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, then there's a while, and then you hear the police. It does appear he was driving.
Yeah, it certainly does, by the way she's talking. Let's look at these super chats. think there was a question in one of them. Joyce Williams sent in $10 super chat. Is there any footage of the trucks ramming the Cadillac? I wish there was. None that I've seen. Has anybody seen that? If you have, let me know. And if you're not yet subscribed to Crime Time with DutyRon, please consider hitting the subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you will get all things DutyRon. And where is he? He's over here. This guy, you're always tricking me, Ed.
And you know, they drove that caddy off the road and onto that field.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And were they trying to, evade them or whatever the case may be, using the field? I'm not sure why they drove up onto that field like that, but it gave the marshals the opportunity to broadside them, to do T-bone them with three different trucks and knock them right into that ravine.
Yeah. And there was some Facebook video and audio of, it was taken by regular civilians, I think, from one of the workers from that plant there, that industrial park. And it showed them chasing them. I have that. It's kind of raunchy because they're cursing and carrying on like street thugs. But that video was actually pretty good because it showed the police chasing them onto the grass. Have you ever seen that, Ed?
Yeah. Let's show it if you have it.
I do have it. I do.
And folks, yes, OnStar does automatically open up when airbags deployed. They get notified, and they'll call into the car, say, "Hey, are you okay?" Or if you have the subscription.
Right. Let me find it. Ed, super chat came in from Revenge over in the UK. She said, "Oh wait, that's not the UK. That's over in Australia." Good day, mate. Again, DutyRon, thank you so much. And she means DutyRon and Ed. Thank you so much for a great show. So informative for us Aussies down here, down under. It's pretty different. Such an honor.
Yeah, you could see right away that the influence of UK in the spelling of the word honor.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Two countries separated by a common language.
All right. I'm going to find it, Ed. I got to take myself off because I don't want everybody looking at me looking for this. So entertain the troops just for another minute. Oh, Jesus. What did I just do?
You took me off. Okay, Ed, I was wondering, thanks, answered a lot of our questions on that. Okay, let's see what else is. Yeah. I think at this point, the 911 operator was kind of confused as to what the hell was going on. So he basically just started listening. Okay, I'm just looking at what you're saying here. Yes, Sherilyn. Hey, we have that same problem right here in the United States. There's so many different accents down south, your New England accent, the New York accent, the California accent, Midwest. It's amazing how, we all started off with one language and just changed so drastically throughout the nation. Will the jury on his upcoming murder trial hear about the escape? I don't think so, because that would be prejudicial to the to that trial. I don't think so. What does it say? Ed, someone said on OnStar called 911. Yeah, that's possible. That is possible. Again, usually you have a subscription for that. And it appears, what is it? Hold on. Where'd that go? And it appears it was Mr. Casey who initiated they leave the hotel. Okay. I know that the marshals had them staked out and saw them enter their vehicle and began the pursuit at that point. So you would think they would know who was actually operating the vehicle.
I found it, Ed. I found it. You ready? All right.
All right.
I think a super chat just came in from Cecile Mathis. Would the officers watching them get in the Cadillac see who got in the driver's side? We're going to play the detective who was off duty and going home I have an interview with him. So not me personally, but I have an interview to show you. All right. This is, again, there's going to be curses. It's 3 minutes long. There's going to be a lot of foul language in this. If you're sensitive to foul language, I am not going to be able to go like this. It's just going to be cursing. So let's let this roll. And again, it's shot from inside a car, and it's a guy talking to his girlfriend on the phone, and he does a lot of cursing and a lot of laughing and disrespect. That's, again, not indicative of what how Ed and I do things, but I think this is a different perspective of everything. I gotta go full screen so everybody could see it. Here we go.
Dude at my job, man. He's rode all through the parking lot. They're shooting him right now. Where? At my job, dude. He was just flying through the fucking building and everything. Running through the building? Right, dude. I swear to God, I'm looking at it right now. They just got him. They flipped the fucking car, bro. Record it. Miguel is. Holy shit, they got him. Stop right here, bro. Stop right here, right there. Get in the grass. Get in the grass. They just drug him out. They just drug him out. They just drug him out. They got
Right
his
here.
ass.
Stop right there. Stop.
Where usually at? They spun him out into the grass, and he went through the gate at work where we. Oh yeah, they did. They shot him.
They shot him?
Hell yeah, they did. I knew he's coming to Evansville to get busted here. Holy fuck!
Whoop his ass, bro. She's just probably
We're
dead.
stuck, man.
In word,
Shake it like a leaf, bro.
bro. I was.
I guess you didn't see that big ass ditch. Yes, literally. Just got off work. I'm stuck.
This is not what I thought it was, but this same guy took more video, so I'm going to look for it. He had.
Back here, my buddy's recording this shit.
Okay, he recorded them driving over the grass. Let me see if this is it right here.
They just got that dude.
It's the same shit.
Yeah, they're just talking trash. Their information wasn't accurate.
No, and they were saying they shot him and all this.
Nobody got shot.
Right, of course not. Just want to see if this is it. Yeah, this is it. Okay. All right.
Ron, did you just freeze on me? I think we lost Ron, folks. What do you think?
Hold on a second.
Oh, there you are.
Oh yeah, and, yeah. No. Hold on a second. All right. All right. Does everybody see this? Ed, can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. Here we go. Again, there's going to be cursing. It's the same clowns.
It is here, bro.
There you see the Cadillac.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see if we can. Okay, tinted windows, and the sun happens to glare right on the driver's window.
I'll slow it up. No, tinted.
Yeah.
All four windows tinted.
Right.
And you'll see them go onto the grass here. So.
It is here, bro. They just got that dude at my.
Shit. It's cut. So there's another version where the guy actually gets out of the car and you see him go across the lawn and just recklessly just ripping up the lawn, and the police are in hot pursuit.
Yeah, and that's probably when Vicky is screaming, "Hey, you're going to set off the airbags. We're going to get killed by the airbags," because they're probably bouncing all over the lawn.
Yeah, when he went off the road, and I'm determined to find that. If somebody has it, or to my internet web sleuths, if somebody has it, I'd like to see that. If you could send it to me while we're live here, we're gonna
by suicide.
We're just gonna let me shut this off. Sorry about that. All right.
Okay.
So Ed, I wanted to show the video of detective, the off-duty detective, who saw the video from the car wash, and again, James is our hero here. I believe that he is, he is the sole. He should be getting that $25,000 because he put the police on to them in the Cadillac and had a ton of evidence that would be able, lead them to make this arrest. So,
And remember that
Vanderbilt County coroner has confirmed Vicky White died of self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head.
I'm sorry, Ed, go ahead.
and remember that reward is coming from Alabama. It has nothing to do with Indiana.
It's the Alabama District Attorney and the U.S. Marshals. So definitely has nothing to do with Indiana. Let me just play this again. We're going to hear from the
Vanderbilt County coroner has.
We're going to hear from the detective, and he's going to tell you under no uncertain terms exactly how this all went down and how he was on his way home and he saw the car in the parking lot and what he did after that. So let's let this roll. It's only 2 minutes.
Confirmed Vicky White died of self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. The corrections officer had been on the run with Casey White after breaking him out of an Alabama jail April 29th. And we've just learned in the past few minutes that he has arrived back in Alabama.
He is there now, but law enforcement stopped that pair last night along U.S. Highway 41 near State Road 57 after one Evansville detective spotted their car on his way home from work. Brady Williams joins us after speaking with that detective.
Well, Randy, Jackie, we've been learning more about this bit by bit since last night. That steady drip of information mirrors how the police eventually located White and White. Between that and new dash cam and body camera footage from Evansville police, it helps paint a clear picture of what happened yesterday. Casey White and Vicky White had abandoned their truck at a car wash on May 3rd. Security footage showed they had changed vehicles, which is how Detective Darren Richardson knew to keep an eye out for a gray Cadillac. He did just that until it was time for him to go home.
Once I got to the area of the hotel 41, I happened to look over and saw a gray Cadillac. So I called the supervisor that I'd spoken with earlier, who I got the vehicle information from.
When police arrived, sure enough, it was White and White. The pair took off with police in pursuit. They made it about a mile down the road to Pete Mogavero's Anchor Industries.
They came right through here, and all I can describe it is it's like a fox being chased by a dozen hounds.
Police followed around the building.
They went on the grass. They went through our berm, following this guy.
That led them into a side lot, and police say U.S. Marshals intentionally collided with the Cadillac to end the pursuit.
And in a scene from Dukes of Hazzard, I think he wanted to jump over this ditch, which is 12 feet wide and 8 feet deep. Didn't make it in the Cadillac.
While in the ditch, police say Vicky White shot herself in the head. Casey White was arrested on the spot. Vicky White died later that night. Police say there is no...
That's the first time I heard him say that. Actually, the audio. Please check
on my wife. Yeah.
With a very southern draw. Please check on my wife. Please.
So, that's all correlates now to what she's saying on the 911 tape. You're going to make the airbags go off. Stop, Casey, stop.
Right.
So he's driving like a lunatic on bouncing all over there, over the berm and everything like that.
Right. Yeah, it makes me believe, that she was not driving and it was him. But again, U.S. Marshals confirmed tonight with Brian Entin that Casey White was driving the car. So that's breaking. I forgot to tell you. I saw that before we went live. So I'll let this play.
It was arrested on the spot. Vicky White died later that night. Police say there is no reason to believe the two.
I mean, look at the size difference there. I mean, it's a grainy image, but 6'9", 300 plus pounds. That's a big boy.
So when did they get married?
I don't know anything about.
Yeah, please check on my wife. Please check on my wife.
Yeah.
Okay.
More of his narcissistic controlling behavior. And he's living in a lie. That's for sure.
Okay, so Dawn Marie Rose asked a question here. Why would Vicky need an autopsy when she told 911 dispatcher she had the gun in her hand and up to her head? We don't have that tape. I never heard those words. That was alleged. I haven't heard it yet. But regardless of whether she said it or not, in this circumstances, police involved chase. shot fired. And a determination has to be made as to whether this is a homicide, suicide, or accidental death. So autopsies are required in this type of situation.
And I will say this, Ed, I did hear the dispatch say that. I didn't hear Vicky say it.
Right. I heard the dispatch say it. I never heard Vicky say it.
Yeah, I definitely didn't hear that. But we played it the night I did the 10 o'clock show here. I played that. But thank you, Rose. Rose is a great friend of ours. She's having some health issues. So let's send love, strength, and prayers to Rose for her to feel better and get some of her strength back. She fights daily with her illness. So Rose, sending you a lot of love and strength. So let me add this again. Let's let the rest of this play, Ed, while we look at the questions.
We're married. Casey White has been taken from the Vanderburgh County Jail to return to face justice in Alabama. A tip-off in Tennessee, some video at a car wash in Evansville.
That's body cam footage from an Evansville Police Department sheriff.
All those threads came together as one detective looked out his window.
It's just kind of one of the things with the career, kind of just goes hand in hand. You're always looking for things. And I was lucky enough where I just happened to be going home and just happened to spot it.
Now that he's back in Alabama, White's going to be facing a capital murder charge that he was facing before he escaped. All right.
So there you have it. I do have one more piece of media, Ed, even though I know you're probably ready to go to bed. Oh, wait, you're 2 hours behind us.
Yeah, it's 7:48 here.
You ain't going nowhere.
Tonight, the Vanderburgh County Court.
All right, let's see what we got. Any questions coming through on the chat? Here's the I want to show the Brian Entin arraignment where they're walking him out. Did you see this? Thank you to Brian Entin for such great coverage. I'm working on getting Brian to come on and join us. And I think we may be able to get Brian Entin on for a few minutes with us. But it's in the works right now. I didn't even tell you about that, Ed, but I'm working on it.
All right, great.
So this is Casey White being walked out of the court after he got arraigned. Again, I see he's walking pretty much here by himself. I mean, not by himself, but I mean, there's nobody holding him. There's a guy in the front. There's a bunch of guys behind him.
Is that sheriff behind him?
No. It's somebody who looks like him. It's not him. Trust me. It's not
okay.
him. And he gets let out to the Sally Port. The Sally Port, which is secure with the doors down on both sides, as it's supposed to be, as you'll see here.
Casey, was it worth it? Casey, does it bother you that Vicky's dead? Who's the mastermind behind your escape? How much thought did you put into this? Casey, did you think you were going to get away? Where do you think you're going tonight?
Where do you think you're going tonight?
I'll tell you, it ain't Disney.
That's for sure.
No, he's not in the same facility, Emily.
No, he's in a maximum security facility that is, hold on a second. I'm getting something from Diane B. It's always interesting when I get something from Diane B. She's sending me something, HeyJB. Casey White sent to a maximum. Oh, it's funny that we're just talking about sent to a maximum security prison, Vicky White. I don't have the name of the prison, but we could always get that. I think it's out there. It's definitely out there. There's no question about that. I think Brian covered that. I'll tell you in a second. Here we go. Okay. Here's Casey arriving after he was extradited and driven back to Lauderdale County. Let's show this. There's a couple of choice questions thrown out to him there. Hold on.
Casey, did you kill Vicky White? Do you love her?
That's your friend, Ed. That's Sheriff Singleton. With his showing his gun. Yeah. Did you? That's the first thing I caught on to. Is Casey White has his hands free, And he's got a pancake holster right there with his gun. Oh.
Well, they're all armed.
I'm not saying anything.
Yeah, that is the sheriff, right?
It is.
Mm-hmm.
Do you love Vicky? Did you love Vicky? Did you kill Ronnie Ridgway?
All right, so that was him as he was being brought back into Lauderdale County. That's all I got to say about that. And let's just see quickly.
Sound like Forrest Gump right there.
Yeah, man.
That's all I got to say about that.
What is this?
John.
That's more than 911. We watched this, the dash cam. You want to see this, Ed? I don't know if you want to see this.
Indiana. What can you tell us about that? What's the time frame? What will be happening tonight?
We expect them to get back here in Florence around 9:30 to 10. We have a judge on standby who will be on the bench when they arrive. He will be immediately carried before the judge to be arraigned on the escape charges. As soon as that arraignment is over, he'll be placed back in the transport vehicle and transported directly to the Alabama Department of Corrections.
Okay, so you mentioned the Alabama Department of Corrections. Was there a decision made not to take him back to your jail?
Absolutely. He has these charges waiting. This has obviously sort of thrown a monkey wrench in the process as far as his trial for capital murder. So they'll have to take some time to figure all that out and sort it out. But at some time, he will be brought back to our facility.
One thing that alarmed.
This is what I was talking about. When his trial gets ready to come, when it's ready to go, that facility that he was broken out of by Vicky White is a holding facility for inmates awaiting trial, and they get brought down from the state, from the maximum security facilities, and they're brought there. So he's gonna come back there. He just said it. You just heard him say it here. Cringeworthy. Hopefully there's a whole new system in place and the ship is a little tighter. Right, Ed?
Not with him in watch. I'm sorry.
Sometime he will be brought back to our facility.
Oh boy. Yeah.
One thing that alarmed me was talking with the sheriff here in Evansville today, and he said that Casey told them that he planned for there to be a shootout and that he wanted there to be a shootout. That's how he wanted this to end. What can you tell us about that?
I'm not surprised. He's a very dangerous man. We said that from day one. We know what he's capable of, and he's very capable of carrying out that exact plan. I don't know if that was their plan or not. Obviously, if he told the sheriff up there it was, then I take him at his word. But it would not surprise me because he's that kind of guy.
There's a lot of mixed feelings, Sheriff, about Vicky White. I know she worked for your office for almost 2 decades. She was going to be Correctional Officer of the Year for your department this year.
Correctional Officer of the Year, Ed.
Multiple times.
You saw the awards when Brian went to her mom's house. She had them proudly displayed. And rightfully so. If my son or daughter had those awards, I would display them as well.
A lot of people really liked her and respected her. How are the employees processing it right now? And also, how is her family doing, specifically her mother? Because I had a chance to meet her mother last week, and it was sort of heartbreaking to talk to her. How's she doing now?
I spoke with her mother this morning, and she is still extremely distraught. They are just beyond belief that their daughter would do something like that, as are we, her co-workers. What in the world possessed Vicky to pull a stunt like this? I don't guess we'll ever know now. But, it's just not the Vicky any of us knew, including her parents. This caught everyone totally off guard. you know, she absolutely exploited her position and her knowledge of the system and of the inner workings of our court system, and you know, was able to get him out of jail and stay on the run for 11 days.
Yeah, it's been a wild 11 days, and it was interesting today to learn that they used this homeless man to go in and rent the motel room behind me for them. Have you learned of any other instances where other people were involved in all of this over the last 11 days?
I have not. I don't know if the Marshal Service got any tips or any information regarding that or not, but I'm not personally aware of any.
And we know that they found $29,000 cash. We have the picture in the car along with a bunch of weapons, but it was $29,000. It was my understanding that she was possibly on the run with $90,000. Do we have any idea where the rest of that money is?
No, obviously not. I would assume we know that they left the Tennessee area where the Ford Edge was abandoned in that black pickup truck, but that truck was not stolen. So I guess it's logical to assume they bought that truck, probably with cash. Where they got the Cadillac that they were eventually caught in, I don't know. But there again, if it wasn't stolen, you know, they obviously probably purchased it.
Yeah, it appears they at least purchased a couple of these cars along the way, so that would make sense that that's where some of the cash went. Sheriff Rick Singleton, thanks for joining us again. I'm sure it's got to be a feeling of relief knowing that this man will be on his way back to Alabama tonight and that all of this is going to be over.
Absolutely, and thank y'all for the coverage you've given this case, because the media has been a tremendous help to us in locating them and getting him back in custody.
You got it. Thank you.
Interesting, Ed. Interesting. So he thanked the media. He talked about, you know, her mom, Vicky White's mom, grieving and how they're giving her support, which is the right thing to do. You know, those are the true victims behind this that are left behind. You know, her mother, her extended family. We don't know the dynamics of the White family, but it's sad. So let's look at the super chats. Jen Nobles from Bakersfield, California, a good friend of Crime Time with DutyRon, the boys, sincere and classic, Bakersfield Ground Zero. She says, wouldn't the autopsy relevance reveal determine? Wait a minute.
Can you put it back?
I got to go back to that and put it on the screen because I'm not sure if I'm reading this right. Okay, here it is. Wouldn't the autopsy relevance reveal and determine if it was suicide or if a gun went off on impact, if he pulled the trigger, etc., and would be comparing the exit wounds to the graze wounds that Casey has. We covered this. Ed, go ahead.
I mean, if he pulled the trigger, first of all, he's on the wrong side of the car. If she has an entrance wound on the right side of her head that exited the top of her head, but if he pulled the trigger, let's just say, play devil's advocate, he pulled the trigger, then there'd be evidence typically of the blow black blood spatter on, it's known as back spatter, on his hand, because his hand would be over the trigger. And so if there's any blood coming back there, it would be on his hand. And then that can be discerned as him possibly having pulled the trigger. But again, as determination as to whether it was an accidental discharge or or suicide, you know, the pathologist has to look at the totality of the circumstances and what he was told, again, by the investigators that were at the scene, what they saw, he probably has access to a lot of that officer body cam footage that we don't. And I, if I was doing an autopsy, I would want to see that. What did they see when they approached the car? And look at all of that to assist him in the cause and manner of death.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. And Jen, you missed the look at the beginning of this because we covered a lot of the things that you asked about, and Ed just reiterated pretty much a lot of it. High priestess of the dark underworld. Is that a movie? I don't know. Why not hold him in a neighboring county? ? Donaldson is 2 hours away. That's why he was in Lauderdale awaiting trial. Love from Alabama. I think that Donaldson is the highest level of secure facility, probably that close. I don't think that there's probably any other better options. What do you think, Ed?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. But he definitely shouldn't be back in that sheriff's jurisdiction.
I would cringe. And the sheriff said he's going to go back. Tanya Delaware, thank you for the super sticker. Much appreciated. Patty L says she would have had to pull the trigger.
I think I was looking for this one here. What happens to the recovered money from the crime scene?
Good
well,
question.
it gets inventoried, counted up, vouchered for safekeeping, and eventually it'll have to go back to the family of
next of kin.
Next of kin when it would go back. Now, that's another thing. Since you brought up the money, you know, people may or may not know what a suspicious activity report is from a bank, but you know, if you try to deposit monies over a certain amount of dollar figure, or try to withdraw cash of a certain amount of dollar figure, a suspicious activity report gets generated by the bank and goes to the feds. So she went to several banks to withdraw all of this monies allegedly, and so I'm guessing, you know, there may be some suspicious activity reporting going on with her transactions. And I don't know that at the time that law enforcement at the local level or the state level would have known that, but federal law enforcement should have been notified about these suspicious activity reports. And I guess the background, the investigation going forward will glean that information if they met that threshold for cash withdrawals and were notified of the suspicious activity. Also, that was an interesting point about a homeless guy going in and getting the hotel for them.
Yeah, he won't be charged. There'll be no charges for that because they paid for 14 days and stayed, I think, for what, 11? I think that the extra days, perhaps because the U.S. Marshals said that they were packing up and leaving. So maybe they had like, hey, buddy, could you put this onto your name, our room, and then we'll give you a couple of free days in this hotel where you can shower and have, you know, that could have been something that was bartered and traded with Casey White and this homeless guy. Miss Wolf sent in a $50 super chat and said, excellent channel. Thank you, Ed and Ron.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Wolf. Thank you.
There was a question there about where does it say? Exit from the head. That's reported from the police on scene. It's heard in the recordings. One of the officers said she has an exit in the top of her head.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, how accurate that is, I don't know, but that was what was recorded.
It's on the 911 call, the 911 dispatch, actually. I played it the other night. That was that 10 o'clock broadcast. Emily, I love you. You're my very first channel member, but this is not true. There's video of them pulling Vicky White out. Her out. Gun was in her hand. It was not. We saw on this stream, if you go back, we saw the officer go in and say, I'm taking the gun. He takes it out clearly on camera, puts it down, and somebody takes it, and then they pull her out without gun in hand. So, Emily, I love you and appreciate you, but that's not true.
The gun was in her hand when she was in the vehicle, and then he went in and got it. And before they removed her from the vehicle.
Yeah, she was removed from the vehicle without the gun.
Right.
All right. How long Casey was in that jail for relationship? It's my understanding that he was there since February of 2022. He was upstate in I believe Donaldson, in that maximum facility, and then brought down because he had an impending trial coming up for capital murder in June. So that's why he was there.
Yes, but the relationship with Vicky started while he was in prison, not the jail.
2010.
And,
not 2010. Was it
2020?
2020. Yes. Jeez, that would have been a really long time. I think we've covered everything. I am starting to get weary and tired. That's because I'm old. But what else do we have? Oh, here's the standoff. Oh, no, I already played that. End of chase. What is this? Let me see what this is.
And even members of the Marshall Task.
Oh, no. We saw this already. All right, Ed. Anything else jumping out at you? I think Chapters of Crime just sent in a $10 super chat with a question. As I look here.
Yeah, the thing I don't understand is why was she worried about the airbags possibly killing them if she intended to unalive? Well, everything is fluid. It's not a static situation here. That was just a snapshot of moment in time. In her mind, she was concerned when they were jumping over all these berms and zipping through the Dukes of Hazzard style through this lawn of this business. That's what popped into her mind. Now, after the car gets hit and they roll into the gully, and now a different mindset sets in, and and it changed from what was going on in the field to now. The gig is up. I'm not thinking about. First of all, why, if you're being chased by the police, why would you even think to go back to the hotel as if that's going to protect you or something now? I mean, that makes no sense.
Yeah, she was making sense in a lot of the things she was saying. So,
but once they got hit and the car rolled over, now her mindset changed, and she says, "I'm not going to prison."
Yeah, right. And she probably, again, could have been disoriented from being tumbled sideways and having this big, jaboki on top of her and whatnot. So, it is what it is. I want to show this Brian Entin. He visited with JB. I'm only going to play a small clip of it, and then we're going to wrap it up because he talks a little bit about some unanswered questions. So let's let this play for a second. This is courtesy of WFLA Now.
Handcuffs and shackles while he's in that cell. If he wants to sue me for violating his civil rights, so be it. He's not getting out of this jail again.
Casey White now in a maximum security prison. Vicky White, her death ruled a suicide. We look now at their final moments as fugitives on the run from law enforcement. All of this coming to an end in Indiana, starting in Alabama, coming to an end in Indiana. We're going to discuss more in their plan to escape, the heroic efforts of law enforcement here live on WFLA Now. Good afternoon, folks. JB Buno here with you live across all platforms on WFLA Now. Let's get right over to joining us from the road, News Nation's Brian Entin. Great to have Brian, friend of the program, back here on the program. Brian, I know you're heading back right now into Alabama. A lot to discuss. Want to let everybody know wherever you're watching from, you can use either of the two hashtags on your screen. Hashtag HeyBrian, hashtag HeyJB. We're going to pluck some of the questions and comments out of the Facebook Live comment section, YouTube Live as well. We'll look on Twitter if we can and try to get some of those comments and questions involved in the live stream. We want to hear from you and also answer any questions because this is a story that a lot of folks were following really into, as far back as last week, over the course of the weekend. Of course, this now culminating with the capture of Casey White and the death by suicide of Vicky White. Brian, just kind of update us with what the latest is and what you're working on as we start to get into some of the questions from our audience members here.
Yeah, so the latest is Casey White is now back in Alabama. Late last night, they brought him back. He was arraigned in Florence, Alabama at the Lauderdale County Courthouse. They had the judge come in. It was at about 9:50 Central Time, I think, is when it happened. The judge came in just to do the arraignment. They brought him in to the courthouse, did it, and then they took him out. I'm sure you've seen the video by now. I mean, it was so interesting to see. Oh, you're showing it right now. I mean, he's like this massive man, and we've been following him for the last. We're trying to follow him for the last 12 days, and we kept hearing he's almost 7 feet tall. But when you see him like that, I mean, you realize that he just is so much even taller than all of the deputies. So this really big guy. They arraigned him, and he was originally, we were told that he was going to go back to the county jail that he got out of initially before being sent to a state prison, but they changed that plan, which is probably a good idea, and they took him straight to a maximum security prison in Jefferson County, Alabama. I was actually just reading about this prison on our drive. It's like the place where the most dangerous of the dangerous go in Alabama. So it seems like he's
the worst of the worst. I'm going to answer this question because this is right up my alley. I worked in the trip team, and we had a 350-mile driving limitation. So anything that was over 350 miles, we would get on an airplane and fly them back. This was within that at least 300. I think it was 200 something miles that they drove them back. So,
yeah, my son had to go down to Richmond to pick up a perp and drive him back to New York.
Yep. So that's how it goes, and different jurisdictions have different. That was those were my guidelines. But in Alabama, they might do things differently. They don't want to pay to have a flight. It's a lot of money to do that. I'll just tell you that.
But it was the federal marshals, no?
Yes. Well, there was times that we flew up into because we couldn't drive it up into Niagara. So when we would go up to Niagara Falls, we would have to take a small one of those small little planes out of LaGuardia, and we would fly without the marshals because we were within the state. So, yeah, I mean, again, it was a matter of drivability and mileage. So anything over 300, I think 350 miles in New York City Police Department, we would have to fly them. Let me just let this play because Brian tells quite a bit of information here about the U.S. Marshals talking about the driver of the vehicle. So this is important. He got clarification.
in the place where he should be right now.
Interesting to note some of the things that were found with them, Brian. Talking about $20,000 in cash. We'll talk more about the cash and why there's only $20,000 in just a moment.
29.
But an AR-15 rifle, 4 semi-automatic handguns, and then wigs for disguises were recovered as well. But this is by what we're hearing from Casey White and his conversations reportedly to law enforcement, this was going to be a firefight. This was going to be a standoff that was going to ensue between Casey White, Vicky White, and law enforcement had it not been for the heroic efforts with a pit maneuver to end this police chase and bring this to an end. What do we know about the heroic efforts of law enforcement here?
Yeah, basically, the sheriff in Indiana, in Evansville, says that Casey White told them after he was brought in that he wanted this to end essentially suicide by cop. He wanted there to be, a gunfight. Luckily, that didn't happen. They had been doing surveillance. They were at this motel. We were actually there all last night at this motel they were staying at. It's actually right across the street from the sheriff's office, which is really interesting, where they were hiding out at the motel. So they were doing surveillance on them at the motel, and they were trying to figure out, were they going to storm the room? How are they going to handle this? And that's when Vicky and Casey left. So they started following and pursuing them, did the pit maneuver, and luckily they ended this without anyone on the outside getting hurt. Of course, we know Vicky White committed suicide before the crash, but it could have been much more dangerous. And you mentioned everything they had in the car, all of that cash and the guns and even her taser that she had from working at the sheriff's office in Alabama, they had with them. But we also learned late last night that they also had a lot of camping gear, which I thought was really interesting. And the sheriff in Indiana told us that he thinks that they were leaving that hotel for good, that they were on to their next spot to hide out. So it's certainly very good that they stopped them when they did, or they may have been, able to get away and continue this trip that they were on.
For folks just joining us, you can use #HeyJB, #HeyBrian. We're about to get to some of your questions and comments. Brian's on the road, so hopefully we have good cell signal there as he now gets back into the state of Alabama. We had talked about it on a previous stream that it was there were so many questions about whether or not the two were going to flee to Mexico or flee to Canada, trying to get out internationally. And I tried to tell folks that it's not that easy just crossing over the border and just making it to another country like that. But yes, that apparently we are hearing reportedly that the plans were for them to hide out, kind of lay low a little bit and wait for things to cool off as far as all of the law enforcement presence that were in these states trying to track them down. Brian, I want to, before we get to some of the questions and comments that are coming with the hashtags, what I want to do is ask you this one question, because this is something that people have been talking about and asking questions about and speculating about online. how this has been reported as a jailhouse romance, about how this was able to happen, how a relatively high-ranking official within the Department of Corrections in Alabama is able to be, as we understand it, be wooed by an inmate who is, by all indications, a really bad guy, someone who is accused of doing some extremely terrible things, and how somebody with such an incredible track record could, if this all adds up, falls in love with somebody who is such a career baddie, if you will. What have we learned in recent days about what made Vicky White put everything on the line to break this man out of jail and go on the run with him, and whether or not there really was a romance, or was it one-sided? Did Casey White feel, I mean, I think that we know now that he did not feel much remorse for Vicky when she died. That's what we're hearing, obviously, as well here. But what do we know about the romance that existed between these two?
So that's a really, really good question. And I think that's why there's so much fascination in the case, is what would cause Vicky White to do this, to upend her life. She was a law enforcement officer for almost 2 decades. She was well respected. She was second in command in the jail. What would cause someone like that to betray all of her coworkers and her family and do this? And we still don't have the answer to that. And I think that's why so many people wanted Vicky to survive, because we wanted to be able to find out some of those things and figure out what was going on with her, which we may never have those answers. In terms of, was this one-sided, was this a two-sided romance? I mean, all indications are, and this is what the sheriff has been saying, that this was two-sided, that this was a love affair happening inside the jail. And she was very, very much a part of it and aware and knew exactly what she was doing, and planned it out meticulously before, last week, beginning of the week, we were in Alabama going.
He doesn't have very much to lose. I mean, he could be facing the death penalty upon conviction for that stabbing death many years ago. But again, how much faith can you put in the word from somebody who,
and then he's still facing the murder charge that he was supposed to be going to.
All right, I don't have the patience to wait for all this. I know, Ed, you're trying to finish up dinner. Basically, Brian Entin goes on to say that the U.S. Marshal confirmed that Casey White was driving.
I love JB, but I got to tell you, that was not a pit maneuver.
No,
they T-boned that car.
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
Look at the car. We have it right here. Look at this.
All right. I mean, they hit him at 90 degrees. Are you kidding me? That's not a T-bone. That's not a pit maneuver. You hit the back bumper and you go back. That's it. They were ending that pursuit right then and there. And as for his comment about the border, are you kidding me? The Mexican border has got more holes in it than Swiss cheese.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, listen, I think it was a great informative live. It was so great to have Barbara Butcher come on and explain the autopsy process and how they can definitively tell that Vicky White killed herself. And, Ed, if you had to put a percentage on it with the decision by the coroner, Steve Lockyer, Vanderburgh County Coroner's Office, what would you say percentage-wise, in your professional opinion, on this decision that she killed herself by a self-inflicted gunshot wound?
Well, honestly, I would never stick my neck out and give you that. I would have to look at the car myself and look at all the corresponding evidence before I would, venture a guess as to that, because, I do this for a living and I testify in court, and I'm not sticking my neck out to get chopped off without having all the facts.
Let me rephrase it. Is there a high probability that this is correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Easy enough.
Yeah. Fair enough, brother. Fair enough. All right. Listen, let's say goodnight to everybody. Thank you to the replay viewers, the moderators, the chatters, the super chatters, the super thanks. People that watch the replay that give super thanks. Follow me and Ed on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, all one word, DutyRon, and now TikTok. Against Ed's best wishes, we're on TikTok. So go over to DutyRon and check out me and Ed, Dr. Murray Marks, and so many others in our live uploads we upload little pieces to TikTok, and we'll do that for this show. So good night from Utah and New York City. Ed, thank you for taking out the time. We're going to take a break tomorrow. We're going to take a day of rest.
Okay.
And
Well, at least you can. I got to work.
I got to work too, Ed. So.
Yeah.
But anyway,
all right.
Good night from New York City. God bless the world. God bless the United States of America. And God bless each and every one of us here in the chat, but especially all victims of crime and their families. Thank you, Ed, for hanging out. Any final words for the troops?
You know my words. Stay safe. Stay prepared. Watch your six.
God bless, guys. Good night.